The year was 2668, and humanity had long since carved its place among the stars. We were neither the strongest nor the fastest, not the most intelligent nor the most advanced, but we endured, we built, we connected. When the Rizuri first encountered us, they saw nothing but weakness, a species that relied on fragile machines to traverse the void, that lacked the natural weapons of the Verkai or the psychic prowess of the Trelthi. They dismissed us, ignoring the history written in the brick and mortar of our past. It wasn't until the war with the Zelkath that they understood. The Zelkath were a race of conquerors, hive-minded and relentless. Their fleets moved like an unbroken tide, swallowing entire systems. The Rizuri, proud and reclusive, fought alone and fell alone, their spires of crystal and light shattered under Zelkath bombardment. Then came the humans. We didn't conquer, we didn't dominate, we built. We landed on ruined Rizuri worlds and reinforced their fragile structures with concrete and steel. We bridged their floating islands with alloys that could withstand orbital bombardment. We turned their shattered colonies into fortresses, their desperate survivors into soldiers. And when the Zelkath came for those worlds again, expecting to find a broken people, they found something else. They found trenches and barricades, tunnels and bunkers, artillery emplacements carved into mountains that had once been mere decoration. They found humans standing shoulder to shoulder with Rizuri, fighting, bleeding, and refusing to break. For the first time in their history, the Rizuri understood what made humanity different. We were not the strongest, the smartest, or the fastest, but we built, we connected, we endured. And together, we won. The Zelkath burned, their tide broken against walls they never thought could stand. In the aftermath, the Rizuri did something they had never done before. They built with us. Not just walls and roads, but bridges between our peoples, between our worlds, between the future and the past. Humanity had done what it always did. We built. And the galaxy would never forget. The war was over, but the work had only just begun. The Rizuri were not a people accustomed to change. Their architecture had once been delicate, ephemeral, floating spires of glass and crystal, bridges of light and energy that shimmered against the sky. Beautiful, but fragile. Their society had mirrored their structures, elegant, sophisticated, yet built on the assumption that they would always be alone. Now, they stood in the shadow of human-made walls, staring at the reinforced structures that had withstood the worst the Zelkath could throw at them. Practical, strong, enduring, ugly, some of the Rizuri whispered. Necessary, others admitted. For the first time in history, the Rizuri adapted. They learned to mix their artistry with our endurance. Their crystal spires were now reinforced with human alloys. Their bridges still glowed with ethereal light, but beneath them, steel cables and reinforced beams bore the weight. Their homes, once temporary in their philosophy, became legacies meant to last generations. But the greatest bridge built was not made of stone or steel. It was the bond between our peoples. At first, the integration was uneasy. Rizuri scholars struggled to understand human engineering principles, and human workers found themselves baffled by the fluid, almost organic construction methods of the Rizuri. They don't measure anything, grumbled Sergeant McAllister, a veteran of the Zelkath War, as he watched a Rizuri architect wave their hands through the air, their bioluminescent fingers tracing glowing patterns. It is measured, Architect the RU replied, clicking their mandibles in amusement, just not with your crude instruments. McAllister scowled, but over time, they found compromise. The Rizuri learned to appreciate the precision of human design, and the humans, after many frustrating attempts, discovered that Rizuri structures, while appearing chaotic, followed a form of natural resonance. Together, they created something new. A fusion of human resilience and Rizuri elegance. Cities that stood against time, yet shimmered like dreams, bridges that spanned not only rivers and canyons, but the vast divide between two civilizations. It wasn't long before the rest of the galaxy took notice. The Trelthi, ever watchful, sent envoys, their psychic minds eager to understand this new alliance. The Verkai, who had once dismissed both species as weak, now sought trade agreements. Even the remnants of the Zelkath, leaderless and broken, hesitated before making any further moves against the humans and their newfound allies. The message was clear. Humanity did not conquer. Humanity did not dominate. Humanity built. And when humanity built, it built forever. The first great monument of the Human-Rizuri Alliance stood at the site of the war's final battle. It was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The base was human-reinforced concrete, steel beams, and towering buttresses that could withstand the fury of 1,000 storms. Rising from this foundation were intricate Rizuri crystal spires, seemingly delicate but strengthened by unseen latticework of human alloys. Energy pulsed within them, glowing softly in the twilight, a memorial to those lost in the war and a beacon for those who would come after. At the center of the structure stood a bridge. Not a literal one, but a massive, symbolic archway where the two architectural styles merged completely, human industry and Rizuri elegance intertwined, inseparable. It was called the Founder's Bridge, and it would become a place of pilgrimage, not just for humans in Rizuri, but for all species who sought understanding between peoples once divided. An uneasy peace, but not everyone celebrated. In the outer systems, resentment simmered. To some Rizuri traditionalists, the alliance was an insult, proof that their people had needed humans to survive. Their elegant cities were now riddled with what they saw as crude human materials, and their cultural identity, once so distinct, was changing before their very eyes. To some humans, the alliance was a mistake. We saved them, they muttered in dark corners of spaceports and backwater colonies, and now we're bending over backward to accommodate them? The first sign of trouble came when an explosion tore through a newly built bridge on the Rizuri homeworld. The structure had been a joint human-Rizuri effort, meant to link an old Rizuri district with a newly constructed human settlement. When it fell, so did the fragile trust between the two populations. Blame was immediate. The Rizuri accused human extremists of sabotage. The humans pointed to the traditionalists, claiming they couldn't accept progress. The official investigation would take weeks. The whispers of war only took hours. The brink of ruin, Captain Elias Ford stood at the edge of the wreckage, fingers curled into fists. He had fought in the war against the Zelkath. He had bled alongside the Rizuri. And now, he was watching everything they had built crumble, this time, not from an alien invasion, but from their own hands. His communicator beeped. The voice on the other end was sharp, clipped, and urgent. "Captain, we've intercepted a transmission. This wasn't just an isolated attack." Ford exhaled sharply. "Go on. There are factions on both sides moving to escalate. More bombings are planned. Riots have started in 3 settlements. We're standing on the edge of something big." Ford closed his eyes for half a second before opening them again. Not on his watch. "We stop this now," he said. The time for war had passed. Now, it was time to build again before everything fell apart. Captain Elias Ford didn't wait for orders. Orders were slow. Orders were political. Orders would come wrapped in layers of diplomatic red tape while cities burned. He had seen it before, in the war against the Zelkath, when hesitation had cost thousands of lives. Not this time. He turned to his second-in-command, Lieutenant Mara Vasquez, a no-nonsense officer who had been with him since the war. "We need eyes and boots on the ground. Who do we trust?" Vasquez didn't hesitate. "Sergeant McAllister has contacts in both the human colonies and Rizuri districts. He's rough around the edges, but he gets things done. Get him moving. We need to know who's pulling the strings." Vasquez nodded and moved to relay orders while Ford scanned the wreckage of the bridge. The attack wasn't just an act of terror, it was a message. Someone wanted the alliance broken. Someone was afraid of what humanity and the Rizuri could build together. And Ford was going to find out who. The fires of distrust. The riots started small, isolated clashes in mixed population settlements, angry mobs hurling accusations and stones, but within days, they had spread like wildfire. In New Halcyon, a human-majority city, Rizuri homes were burned in the night. The next morning, in the Rizuri enclave of Viathera, human engineers were found beaten and left for dead. The media spun the chaos from every angle. Some called it the inevitable result of an unnatural alliance. Others decried the extremists on both sides as relics of a past best left buried. The truth was worse. This wasn't random, it was orchestrated. And McAllister had the proof. The hidden hand. Ford stared at the holoscreen in his office as McAllister's grainy footage played. The sergeant had gone undercover, following whispers in the underground, digging into the darkest corners of both human and Rizuri society. What he found was chilling. 2 factions, 1 human, 1 Rizuri, had been working in secret, feeding the flames of war. The human group called themselves the Iron Legacy, radicals who believed humanity had no need for alliances, only dominance. Their Rizuri counterpart, the Veil, were old guard traditionalists who saw humans as corrupting interlopers. And worse, they weren't just acting separately. They were working together. Ford clenched his jaw. It made twisted sense. The easiest way to destroy the alliance wasn't through war, it was through chaos. By stoking hatred on both sides, they ensured no one would look for the real enemy. "We have names," McAllister said grimly. "High-ranking officials, corporate backers, ex-military types. This goes deep, Captain." Ford exhaled, weighing his options. If they moved too fast, they'd be seen as suppressors, fueling more resentment. If they moved too slow, the alliance would shatter. He turned to Vasquez. "We need to hit them where it hurts, quietly, strategically." Vasquez smirked. "Good, I was getting bored." A new war in the shadows. The fight that followed wasn't one of grand battles or spacefaring armadas. It was one of espionage, deception, and precision strikes. McAllister and his team hunted down key operatives, dismantling terror cells before they could strike. Rizuri agents, those who still believed in the alliance, worked from within, exposing the Veil's hidden hands. Ford and Vasquez played the long game, leaking just enough information to the public to shift the narrative, to make the people see the truth, that they were being manipulated, that the violence was a lie told by those who thrived on division. It wasn't clean, it wasn't easy, and it sure as hell wasn't without bloodshed. But brick by brick, bond by bond, the alliance held. And when the dust settled, the galaxy finally saw what humanity and the Rizuri had always known. That the strongest structures are not the ones that never face hardship. They are the ones that endure. The future calls. Years later, when the Founders Bridge was rebuilt, its foundation bore a new inscription, written in both human and Rizuri script. "Strength is not in walls that divide, but in bridges that unite." And for the first time in galactic history, humanity was not just seen as survivors, or warriors, or builders. They were seen as something far greater. They were the architects of tomorrow.